What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Sean Davis, and welcome into the reveal of my number 23rd ranked team in my 2024 preseason power rankings with the deep dive into the Charlotte Hornets, a team that is actually pretty excited to talk about. I have a great interview with my guy, Brian Geisinger, co-host of the BuzzBeat podcast. That'll be at the end of this episode. So 3 straight shows now with a special guest, and thankful that Brian was able to hop on with me. But we are still here in this big cluster of teams that are, in my opinion, playing quality teams. So you guys can see here, the Hornets have a 79.405 grade for me. They come in here 23rd, just barely above like the Pistons and Raptors. There's actually going to be like a mini tier break within a tier, as the jump up from 23 to 22 is fairly significant. But before we continue, please make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe here to the channel. We're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by the time the season starts. So really appreciate you guys. If you're new, hitting that like button and subscribe here to the channel. But let's start this off how we always start this off, by recapping the additions and departures here and kind of the offseason here for the Charlotte Hornets, which was, it was a fairly, I don't want to use the word quiet. It wasn't a quiet offseason. This was actually a pretty important offseason for this Hornets squad, where you have just the chaotic just mess. And that is me being absolutely nice, I think, to describe the 2023 offseason as that, as a mess, because you miss out on Kenny Atkinson, who was going to take the job, but then says, you know what, I'll just stay in Golden State. So you go back to Steve Clifford, which I berated them for that decision last offseason. So you fire Steve Clifford, or you mutually part ways. I think actually Steve Clifford's in the front office now. You lose Davis Bertans, and then JT Thor. I mean, they don't really lose a bunch here, but they bring in Charles Lee, Boston Celtics lead assistant head coach. I don't know why I'm saying assistant head coach, but Charles Lee is awesome. I'm really high on this acquisition. You guys will see this in a second. I can't rank him too high in my coaches' rankings, but I can, say I am really optimistic about Charles Lee in that kind of higher. I have him ranked as my 25th ranked head coach here. And, let's really quickly double check. Yeah, 25th ranked head coach in the league. I think of that more as a benefit of the doubt slider, but he's awesome, man. He provides a ton of scheme versatility from the stuff that we've seen from him in Boston under not only Joe Mazzulla, but also Mike Budenholzer in Milwaukee, who he worked under as well. So I love this hire, slam dunk pick. And he's just about the right things, I think. If you look at any of the videos from this offseason, he's been about the right stuff. So I really like the Charles Lee hiring. Then they bring in Josh Green, who in a trade. And last year, I was kind of anticipating a jump up for Josh Green. Some things didn't really work out his way, but if he could come in here and kind of play with confidence from the perimeter primarily, Josh Green's a guy that can't actually kind of have a little bit of a later breakout and be a guy that can really actually contribute to this team. And I think for this team's defense, which we'll talk about just a sec, that I'm not all that high on, this team's going to need Josh Green to kind of take that step offensively. And then they also drafted Alan Saloon with the 6th pick in the NBA draft. And I talk about this in the interview with Brian at the end. Sadon Salon, excuse me. I talk about this at the end. I appreciate teams kind of just, getting their guy, whether it's right or wrong. I do appreciate that. However, my one critique of the pick is that I would have liked to see them trade back. I don't think if they, like, for example, Memphis, who was at 9, Memphis was at 9. I would have done everything in my power. I think there was a report for that, to try to trade back to 9. Let Memphis come up to 6, trade back 3 spots. You maybe get a couple seconds. Maybe you get a heavily protected future first, and then you still get the guy you want anyway. Get him at 9 at fairly, better value. I had Tadon Salon as my 13th highest graded prospect on my board. And, getting him at 9, the 13th ranked prospect at 9 compared to 6, it just sounds better. So I don't know. Small critique. They clearly like the archetype. They like the upside and his build. But just small critique on my part. But they also extend Miles Bridges, so we'll talk about that in a second. Again, there's still this kind of dark cloud over the franchise because of that whole situation. And, he's a POS and hasn't really been remorseful at all about the situation. So, yeah, we'll talk about that in a sec, too, once we get to, the player grades. But let's start this off by taking a look at this roster breakdown and why I have the Hornets coming in here at 23rd. And the conversation starts with LaMelo Ball. Really quickly, I do want to highlight that the Hornets can really, really get versatile with their lineups. I think the 4 of these starters are locked. I think LaMelo starting. Well, obviously LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Mark Williams are all starting. I think that for that's for certain, right? I think that's for certain. Um, but there's 3 other guys that all have arguments to start, in my opinion. I think that Grant Williams, who I do list as the other starter, I think Grant Williams has a legit spot to start. I really like how they used Grant Williams last season too in Charlotte after he got traded here. Josh Green, depending on camp goes, and if he's confident from the perimeter offensively and the defense, takes that step back up to where it was like 22, 23. Josh Green has a legitimate, reason to start here, in my opinion, a legit argument. And then, Trey Mann. Trey Mann is awesome. And if you want to go with 2 guards and let Brandon Miller be a real 3, they could also do that too. So they have some options here offensively with this starting 5. They can really, really get creative and mix and match a bit, which should be fun. By the way, I haven't even started my player evaluations yet, or my conversation on some of these guys. But looking at kind of this roster, I love their depth at the guard spot. Misic, Seth, if Seth can stay healthy and the shot gets back to where it was 22, 23, only shot 35% from 3 last season after having 5 straight seasons of shooting over 40% or higher. Make that 7 seasons where he played at. So we're just gonna chalk up last season as a random season. Not really concerned about that. But I like their depth in that guard spot. And then even at the wing spot too, we have KJ Simpson listed as a wing. Don't know why, error on my end, but even Josh Green, Cody Martin, Tadon Salon, Grant Williams, Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller, they have some nice depth here. But all right, let's start this off with LaMelo Ball. And LaMelo Ball is truly one of the toughest players to rank in the entire NBA, if I'm being completely honest with you, because he has some incredible strengths and he is a awesome talent. Truthfully, man, he has some insane touch around the rim. It's actually fun to watch. Obviously, great 3-point shooter. The difficulty of shots he takes too, that also factors into that. And some other strengths too that we'll talk about in just a sec. But the biggest thing with LaMelo Ball, and as you guys can see here, we gave him the red plus sign. This guy has to freaking stay healthy. Over the past 3 seasons, he's only played in 133 games, right? And I think that's 133 out of a potential 244, maybe. If we really quickly do some quick math, 246. I was off by 2. So he's played in barely 50%, maybe a little bit over 50% of available games over these past, couple of seasons. So 54%, 54.06 to be exact. So only playing at 54% of your available games over these past 3 seasons is a problem. And, Melo, they're reporting, hey, look, we're going to, have him wear ankle braces. The problem is he hasn't, really been able to get one that he likes and be comfortable with. But Puma, man, give him the Steph Curry treatment, for crying out loud. Even though that I think the saying, the best ability is availability, is kind of overplayed and we use it a little bit too much, I think, at times. That is completely justified and warranted here for LaMelo Ball because, it's hard to truly get a grasp on what he is as a player if he only plays 50% of his games in 3 seasons. And I do think at times he goes under the radar as a talent because of the fact that he's just quite frankly never healthy. And, sometimes people don't get a real glimpse of what he is as a player because of that. Because again, when he is on the floor, he is truly an all-star caliber offensive player, if not potentially better. Look at that month of November from LaMelo Ball, where he averaged 27 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists on 48, 42, 87 shooting splits, which is flat out incredible. And like I said, I love his touch around the rim where he's able to get crafty, change the angle near the basket, and finish. He was a much improved driver of the basketball this season, which was fun to watch. He is a ridiculously skilled playmaker where, like I said, he's probably the most creative player in the entire league. Like, two other players that I think of with that is like Trae Young and, Luka Doncic in terms of this flat out creativity with the ball in their hands. And where he could just see ridiculous angles and lanes that come open that would be available to 98% or so of the entire league. Just call it that. Maybe there's a couple of the guys I'm leaving out, but when you also combine that with the fact that he is a really gifted handler of the basketball, and even though he's not the most athletic player in the world, which does limit some of his ability to get to the rim and finish at times, or be able to really get to the paint, because you throw a more athletic guy on him that can limit his driving, potential. But the handle alone in a good enough first step, I think, with the ball in his hands, he's able to create enough separation to get just about any shot that he wants. Then you combine that with the fact that he is a super dynamic pick and roll ball handler as well, and you get a guy like LaMelo Ball. I still can't put him in like that tier 1 for me of playmakers. It's not even the turnovers, like the numbers or whatever, right? Because I think Luka, Trae, who I do have in my tier 1 of playmakers, I think tier 1 to me, like elite, like top 5 playmakers on the planet. Trae, Luka, Hallie, Jokic, I know I'm missing somebody off the top of the head right now, but that would be the 4 I say are tier 1 elite playmakers. I think LaMelo is probably tier 2. And the thing is with LaMelo, I think at times, some aggressive coverages can get to him. And I think just the consistency of the reads being made with LaMelo Ball is really the thing that I'm looking for heading into this upcoming season with LaMelo is can we dial back some of the really, really bad reads? And I compared it in the interview to Josh Allen, the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, where, some of the decision making, you do kind of just need him to kind of go through because that's partially what makes him special. But there are times where it's, similar like to a Josh Allen, it's a games-ending interception or something like that. But Josh has kind of dialed that back to even to a certain extent. So I like LaMelo. I had a really, really tough time ranking LaMelo. Some of the inefficiency stuff, too, I would like to see him improve upon. I do have the arrow pointing up because, again, I kind of referred to this in the interview. I think LaMelo Ball can actually have kind of a re-breakout where if he plays 60-ish games this season, I think people will get reminded just how damn talented he is as an offensive player. And we'll start to have that conversation again about LaMelo Ball being one of those point guards that is in the upper echelon in the Eastern Conference that is loaded with quality guard play. But I have an apology to issue, and that's to one Mr. Brandon Miller, who, my God, did I shred this organization for drafting Brandon Miller last offseason. I apologize. I just want to start off there. And really quickly, it's not that I didn't like Brandon Miller. I just thought the pick was the wrong choice because I was a Scoot Henderson homer. I love Scoot Henderson's draft film coming out of the G League Ignite, and I slandered the Hornets for taking Brandon Miller because I had a tier gap between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson. But Brandon Miller is such a freaking fun player to watch, man. He had such a fun season, and actually, it's almost, you never wish for guys to get hurt, right? Never. But dare I say, it is almost a blessing in disguise that LaMelo didn't play as much, that, they dealt with all those injuries last season. It is almost a blessing in disguise because of the fact that we got to see Brandon Miller get touches and put in scenarios where we just flat out wouldn't get to see if LaMelo Ball played 70 games last season, if some of these other guys were healthy for the entire year, if Trey Mann was there all season. And maybe that's a bad example, but you get my point. He is a ridiculously talented shooter. And playing an Alabama system under Nate Oates, I think did one thing for him. His range is ridiculous where he could pull up, or maybe not pull up quite yet, but catch and transition from the Houston spot, which is very much elevated from the 3-point line. Think like Steph Curry range, Damian Lillard range. Like he could catch it from right there in transition and knock down threes. And it really just stretches the defense. You have two of those guys on this team in LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. And it's hard to guard this team in transition. And at times when they actually do get to run and gun, you had Steve Clifford as the head coach for crying out loud here last season. But going back to Brandon Miller, true shooting percentage is I want to say 3% below league average, shot at 55.4% true shooting percentage. I think, let's start off with the positives. And again, I'm referring to the interview again. I'm just going to stop spoiling it. But his favorite player is Paul George. If you look at his play type data, it eerily reminds me of like a Paul George, Chris Middleton type in terms of the versatility of him as a player, where you're able to just say, okay, look, we want to run stagger screen action for Brandon Miller. Okay, cool. We want to run him off the off screens and flares and pin out stuff like that. Cool. We got a mismatch. Okay, cool. We want to throw him in pick and roll scenarios. Okay, cool. Have him as an off ball cutter. Okay, cool. He's so dynamic in that way. And pairing this type of player next to LaMelo Ball is actually, really, really fun. But I'm going to go here. And Hornet fans, you guys let me know what you think in the comments. I truly believe for this Hornets team to take that step in like the next year or two to being perennial playoff contenders in the Eastern Conference, and dare I say, conference final like contenders. In order to get to that point, they need Brandon Miller to turn into like that all consistent year in, year out all-star to where he's their best player. And maybe I'm sleepy on LaMelo to say that, but I think if we're just talking about the skill set that is most likely going to translate to the playoffs, I think it is Brandon Miller's skill set. Where he is such a creative and dynamic mid-range jump shooter. He plays already with such great poise and pace out of pick and rolls where he's able to get to his spots, again, in a Chris Middleton-esque type of way. I think he doesn't have this insane self-creation bag, especially in one-on-one scenarios, actually pretty similarly to LaMelo, because they're both not this, ultra quick twitch speed type of guy. And Brandon Miller does have the craziest handle either. So at times it can actually be a little bit of a drag watching him create self-creation in one-on-one scenarios. So he is going to be a ball screen dominant player, I feel. But do not mistake that for the fact that he's not athletic at all, because he has some insane bounce at times where he can attack off the catch and just explode up at the rim and finish over, taller, more athletic players at times. He does have the craftiness to finish and change the angle at the rim. The sky's the limit for Brandon Miller. And I would say truly with Brandon Miller, I put this on Twitter. What if Brandon Miller's just an all-star caliber player this season? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think it actually boils down to these two things. I think I want to see the 3-point, volume increase, especially like out of ball screens. And I want to say he only shot 68 pick and roll threes last season. And he shot like barely over 100 pull-up threes in general last season. So let's increase the volume. As a matter of fact, he almost doubled his pull-up twos with his pull-up threes. I want to say it was like 217 pull-up twos. Shot insanely well, mind you. Shot, around 48% on mid-range twos. So like I said, insanely talented pull-up mid-range shooter, but he only shot, I want to say, 109 pull-up threes in total. So let's get that volume of pull-up threes up, increase that, and I think the efficiency will eventually come around. Didn't shoot incredibly well on pick and roll threes. So let's say it was only 32%. So he's too talented of a shooter for that, number not to like go up as well. Let's just increase that volume too. The playmaking, there you need to kind of correct it a little bit, but I like the fact that I think he like is trying to make reads and process defenses at times. And again, it's funny that I'm saying this player is the guy that I'm comparing him to because that's his favorite player. But can we get to like at our ceiling, our ultimate ceiling, like Paul George levels of playmaker, where he is not your primary playmaker, but go back to like 20, what year would that have been? 2018, 19 Paul George season, where if I recall correctly, he averaged what, 5-ish assists that season? Correction, he averaged 4.1 assists, but also 28 points. And then, the past 3 seasons before this year with the Clippers, he averaged 5 assists. So can we get to that level where we have him with this other ball dominant point guard that is like the operator of the offense, can get everybody touches. And, for Paul George, these past couple seasons, that's been James Harden, and OKC, it was Russell Westbrook. For Brandon Miller, it's LaMelo Ball. Can we get that guy next to him? But like the playmaking is advanced enough to where we can be like a consistent like 5 assists per game guy, where we can make the necessary reads. So need to be this crazy playmaker, but make the necessary reads. And you would like to see the self creation, like in one-on-one scenarios, improve. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, and that's like the biggest drawback in the difference between like Brandon Miller and Paul George is that first step and just the explosiveness with the ball in their hands, isn't the same. So that does concern me a little bit. But if we could get 2 of those 3 things over the next couple of years, like the pick and roll shooting from 3 or the pull up shooting in general from deep, the playmaking continues to take steps, and somehow the self creation, you get 2 of those things, and Brandon Miller's an all star. He's that good. And again, Charlotte Hornets fans, I apologize. And I also apologize that we have Miles Bridges here to talk about because, again, this is just a massive dark cloud over this Hornets organization because legitimately, he's a good basketball player. A lot of his stuff last season, I will say, were kind of empty calorie stats. I don't think you can really argue that. The good news is, like, he's the one guy on this team, I guess, minus Brandon Miller, who played 74 games last season. He's the one guy that I look at and I say, yeah, he's gonna play. He doesn't miss a lot of games. I want to say he got, what was it, a 10-game suspension heading into last season? I think that's right, because I remember thinking that was absolutely ridiculous. But 10-game suspension, so that limits the amount of games you can play at to 72, and he played 69. Year before that, or the season before that, where he was actually able to play because he wasn't, a prick. He played 80 of 82 games. In that year, he was actually like really damn good as an offensive player. Year before that, 66 to 72 available. Year before that, 65. Year before that, 80. So this is a guy that, for the most part, you can count on him playing, if fully available, 70-ish games. Like, okay, yeah, he'll miss some, but you can count on him to be relatively healthy. But again, like I said, this is just flat out a dark cloud over the franchise, man. The way they've handled this situation, I think, has been pretty poor, to say the least. Just the lack of remorse, I feel, from Miles Bridges has really been the most frustrating part of this whole situation. When he's healthy, when he's out there and locked in, he can be a consistent paint touch guy and get to the rim. And obviously, he's one of the most freakishly athletic guys on the planet right now. Um, fine 3-point shooter, nothing to write home about, but he gets his buckets like from LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. The playmaking has come along throughout his career, but as you guys can see by my tone, I don't really want to talk about Miles Bridges. It sucks that they gave him that contract. I get it. You don't want to like lose the asset, but I mean, keeping Miles Bridges around, that doesn't like elevate them to a superstar, kind of, championship contending team. he helps their grade out. Like, again, like if I take Miles Bridges out of the equation and, like, I don't know, insert a Josh Green, this team is, probably right above the Raptors, I would imagine, right? Yeah, they're probably going to be above the Raptors, so they would have slotted in at 24th. Oh my God forbid this team drops one spot in my power ranking series. To pay him $75 million just doesn't sit right with me. So it's unfortunate. And yeah, we're gonna move on to Grant Williams, who I actually do want to talk about. Grant Williams got traded. There was some stuff about him and how things kind of ended in Dallas, similarly to Boston too. But Grant Williams, they really, really did some fun stuff for Grant Williams last season, using him as kind of a hub. And they'll let him be this off-ball screener, let him be this short role playmaker, connected playmaker. He started developing like real chemistry with Brandon Miller too, which is fun. And I'm curious to see. I have him starting. Like I said, I think you can make a real case for a few of these guys here, like a Trey Mann, a Josh Green, but I think they like some of the connected playmaking aspects that they could give with Grant Williams, and especially with the health of a Mark Williams being up in the air. This is a real spot, I think, for Grant Williams. I think he's found himself a nice little role here in Charlotte, and yeah, I'm happy for him. And then we got Mark Williams. And Mark Williams, again, another guy that you just need to freaking stay healthy. Over the past 2 seasons, he's played a combined 62 games, which is really worrisome. He left last season with a back injury that nobody really knows about still. I think to this day, I don't think anybody really knows like what's going on with that back injury. You are hoping, you're hoping that he's able to stay healthy and get back. Suffer that injury kind of in November. In November against the Nets, and he tried to kind of play through it or whatever. He said it's not like a surgery thing or anything like that. So, I mean, I guess on one hand that's good, but it's also still incredibly concerning that you have this nagging back injury that like keeps you out pretty much for the whole year. And it's not something that you need surgery for, but you can't play. So that is somewhat concerning because when Mark Williams is out there, such a dynamic screen setter. He's a really, really, really good finisher around the basket. In freaking sane offensive rebounder and the 98th percentile for offensive rebounding percentage, which is nuts. And then you get to the defense side too. Like this team desperately needs him to be able to play because defensively, this team is garbage if he's not out there. Like just being completely transparent with you all. They need him. They need him bad defensively. But again, the screen setting, the offensive rebounding, the finishing around the rim, like this team, like he is legitimately a good player that actually could probably break out this season if he's able to stay healthy. And they have a few guys that can really break out. We already talked about LaMelo having a re-breakout, Brandon Miller, re-breaking out, if you will. I'm sorry, he wouldn't re-break out. But breaking out and potentially being like an all-star this season. Again, I don't think that's crazy to to say that. He's actually fun. Like I said, 98th percentile in offensive rebounding percentage, 96th percentile per B-ball index in adjusted offensive rebounding success rate. He's a really good player and also has legitimate upside to be their anchor defensively. So Mark Williams, please stay healthy. This team needs it. And then they have a fun guard room. I take a shot every time I say the word fun with this Charlotte Hornets team. You won't be taking it with Miles Bridges, but for everybody else you can. Trey Mann, I mean, we kind of, the basketball sickos kind of saw some of the potential. Williams in OKC never really got an opportunity, gets traded here to Charlotte, and instantly you kind of see it. You kind of see it with Trey Mann. I don't know if it'll be like a real starter or real lead initiator for a team. That turnover percentage really, really has to come down. But, you had a 16.1% turnover percentage, which is not ideal, obviously. But, talented player with the ball in his hands. good enough playmaker. Like, I actually think he's fairly solid. He had 16.8 drives per 100 possession, per 75 possessions, excuse me, which per B-ball index is in the 97th percentile. He really leverages his ability to get downhill. He really leverages that, and it opens up his playmaking game really, really nicely. But yeah, Trey Man, really, really fun and dynamic player, kind of a combo guard. And Charlotte has a good one. Charlotte has a good one, Trey Man, who at the very least I think can be like their 6-man backup. Then they have Steph Curry, they have Nick Smith Jr. and Misic. I hope I don't like botch that name, even though I probably already did. But still, Misic. Um, they have a really deep guard room. I will give them that because, like I said, I love Trey Man. I'm a big Nick Smith Jr. fan, and then they also drafted KJ Simpson, so they have multiple cracks at this, and they know the health of LaMelo Ball. They know they're going to need some guard options, and they were kind of going guard by committee here, and I like this. They probably have one of the deepest guard rooms in the entire NBA. Josh Green, we kind of touched on earlier. Cody Martin, another guy that needs to freaking stay healthy. Because when he's out there, he's pretty solid, actually. But it's really just comes out to the health. I think Cody Martin makes his biggest impact for them defensively. You need him to get back to, I want to say it's like his 2022 form. But, solid connected playmaker. Did shoot the 3-ball that well last season. And that's really like what's holding him back. And you need that for him to really hit his ceiling as an offensive player. But again, another guy that just needs to stay healthy here for Christ's sakes. He only played 28 games last season, 7 games in 2023. So, I mean, you got him, you got, Mark Williams, you got LaMelo, you got just too many guys here that can't freaking stay healthy. Really, really good, I think, on the defensive end. But again, just the health. Then you have Nick Richards. That's the next guy that I really, really want to spend time on. And I am a Nick Richards, excuse me. I am a Nick Richards truther, guys. One of my favorite, like, true role players in the NBA. He is their backup big if they're able to stay healthy. And another guy that I think really, really contributes more defensively, but really good screen setter. Opens up the right way, but just a super dynamic lob catching threat for LaMelo, for Trey Man, for Brandon Miller. And you combine that as well with he's not quite the offensive rebounder in terms of like success rate and things like that as a Mark Williams, but he's pretty daggone good in his own right. He's in the 89th percentile for offensive rebounds percentage and offensive rebounds per 75 possessions. He's still damn good, and he is this ultra hustle and energy guy on that offensive glass, and he's also a good defensive rebounder too. So even though Mark Williams' health is pretty suspect, you have a guy in Nick Richards who can do some of that stuff offensively. Not the defensive guy that like a Mark Williams is, who has the versatility and I guess is like a pretty decent time to kind of get over to that defensive end. I think him and Mark Williams both have their roles defensively. I think Mark Williams is definitely the more scheme versatile player. Even though Mark Williams, I think, is at his best probably as a drop coverage big. He does have more versatility than Nick Richards. Has solid, lateral movement and the ability to, like, in a pinch, guard on the perimeter. But, you want Mark Williams protecting the rim. You want Mark Williams protecting the rim, 95th, 85th percentile for blocks per 75 possessions. When he does contest, he does a fairly good job. 62nd percentile in block rate on said contest. He's a really, really unique defensive talent. He's only 22 years old, has the size for the position, 7 foot, a legit 7 foot. And this defense, as you guys can tell here, they need him because you look at this group, and I'm not all that optimistic about this defense if he's not out there. This team, they rank in the 20th to 25th ranked here for me for their defense, which is right in this sixth tier for defense. They rank 20th to 25th, a C minus grade for me. Um, if Mark Williams is healthy for a full season, I think along with kind of Charles Lee's coaching, I think it's possible that this team could get up into that like tier 5 of defenses that we saw like with the Pistons episode, like 15th to 19th, probably closer to 19th/20th. But if Mark Williams is healthy for a full year, Josh Green's here, Brandon Miller takes a step defensively as well. I think they could get to like this range of NBA defenses. If he's not healthy, then you're looking at this team being, a lot closer to like the Wizards and the Jazz and the Nets of defenses. Like this defense could be really, really bad, or this could be right around middle of the pack for defenses. They're right now currently in the same tier as teams like the Bulls and Raptors that we already discussed. Um, LaMelo Ball, talk about him defensively for a sec. LaMelo Ball, I think he is a solid defensive playmaker. Like he is at times active in the passing lanes. That's really where you see him kind of flash off his ridiculous, like I said, basketball IQ, and read the playmakers and make steals in the passing lanes, like I mentioned. Does navigate well in ball screens. Isn't the strongest guy either. Very similar concern with the Brandon Miller, who you want to see him kind of put on, some strength and some contact balance, stuff like that. But overall, I'm not all that optimistic about this defense unless Mark Williams is here. This defense can be really, really bad if Mark Williams is unable to go. But, kind of wrap up there. Tadas Salon, like I said, we didn't touch on him as much as I should have, but I think he is a guy that will not play this year. I think maybe he plays next year. Has the archetype, I think, to be kind of that true 4 next to LaMelo and Brandon Miller and hopefully Mark Williams long term, to where he could take on the bigger assignments for the best wings in the league, be a guy that can space the floor and knock down threes. That kind of tells you what this draft class is. If he's the 6th overall pick, where we're talking about a 3-and-D guy ultimately, if everything works out. Just not a guy that I think can play right now. I think they don't need him to play right now either. They have at least like 5 wings on this team. Like Brandon Miller, we have him as a 2, but like I said, with the kind of lineup flexibility, he could shift to the 3. But yeah, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Grant Williams, Josh Green, Cody Martin. You have 5 guys. And the only way I think Tadas Salon really plays this season is if 2 of those guys plus like get banged up. So he's gonna be a nice Greensboro watch. I'll make sure I keep tabs on this upcoming season. But in Greensboro, because like I said, I don't think he really plays for the Hornets team this season. But let's wrap up here with the strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll check out some of the Vegas sports betting odds using our trusty old FanDuel. Appreciate FanDuel as always. Is not a sponsor, but FanDuel I think is the best. We got the young core here. I think is a legitimate strength of this team. You got LaMelo, you got Brandon Miller, Mark Williams. I think the upside for Tadas Salon here to be a part of this young core, that's kind of what I view this young core as, no matter what this franchise says. They consider Miles Bridges as part of this core as well, which I think is just flat out stupid. But, hey, it is what it is. I think the 3-point shooting from this group is also going to be a big strength as well. You have LaMelo, Brandon Miller. I don't really want to say Miles Bridges, but you have Seth Curry, you have Trey Mann, you have a bunch of guys here that I think Nick Smith Jr., Jalen Green, you have guys that can actually shoot the 3-ball here. And I like the new direction that this team's kind of going with. They finally move on from Steve Clifford and get a new voice in the locker room that I think is a more modern guy. I hope they really just like run the hell out of teams this season, kind of Indiana Pacers style, which is one thing we didn't talk about. I also think the Charles Lee hire will be way more beneficial for LaMelo Ball this season. So the shift in direction organizationally, I think, is also a big plus. The weakness is the health is a major issue. 2 of your 3 like young core players that we kind of highlighted can't freaking stay on the floor. LaMelo has barely played 50% of his available games these past 3 seasons, and Mark Williams has barely played 60 games over these past 2 seasons. So can we do something? I think they addressed their training room as well. So can we find a way to freaking stay healthy? The defense and the talent here, especially, it's rough, man. And again, if Mark Williams is not able to stay on the floor, this might have a shot to be the worst defense in the league. Because outside of Mark Williams, I mean, Nick Richards is fine, but I think I like Nick Richards a lot more as a true backup. And what he does on that end is a big, where he's, very much traditional style big, drop coverage. I'll try to protect the rim. Outside of that, like, there is nothing here defensively. Not a lot to write home about. And then you look at, I think the self-creation scoring in like ISO scenarios. And that's the one thing that I look at the weaknesses. I'm like, okay, maybe this actually is a plus if Brandon Miller's able to take that next step, and LaMelo, is stronger, able to handle some of the more athletic players that he's going to draw in the league. So we shall see with that one for sure. But let's wind down here with, their Vegas odds. And that's going to start off with, NBA Finals odds or championship odds. Again, very similarly with the teams in this kind of tier. Plus 100,000 championship odds, not surprised by that. To win the division, to win the Southeast Division, plus 5,500. Okay, that's not terrible. And then if we go to regular season odds, they have the over-under set at 30.5 wins. That's such a tough number because I think if they're healthy, that I would actually like play this. This is, plus 100, to win, for them to win over 30.5 games. I actually don't hate those odds. It just really comes down to, can this team stay healthy? And to make the playoffs, the Hornets are at plus 390. Again, if they're able to stay healthy, I think if they're able to stay healthy, I feel pretty confidently that this team is a play-in team. So if this team is a play-in team, then we're just talking about, can they win one game or win two games more than likely? So I don't know. It's interesting. So thank you all so much for tuning into this breakdown of the Charlotte Hornets. We have a great interview with my guy, Brian Geisinger. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you guys subscribe here to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Let's get to this interview. Let's go. All right, guys, I want to welcome you all into our post-breakdown interview with my guy, Brian Geisinger, co-host of the Buzz Beat podcast. He's got a tongue twister there. Brian, my guy, thank you so much for coming on this year. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm actually excited to talk about the Hornets.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be on, talk Charlotte hoops. And yeah, it's been really the last, I don't know, 6-7 months have been not a lot of winning basketball in that span of time, but certainly like a changing of the guard with the franchise that seems to have things at least pointed at the early stages in the right direction here. So it's been refreshing.
Yeah. I have the Hornets 23rd in my power ranking series this year. They're in a big cluster of teams that is like they're not bad. They're not like outright bad, but like they're not. They're like playing teams. Like if everything goes right, they're probably a playing team. Gut reaction when you hear Hornets coming in at 23.
Sounds about right, honestly, because they would need so much stuff, sort of to what you were saying. They would need so much stuff to go their way, I think, for them to really get like the 9 or the 10 seed or whatever and, slip into the play-in. I think realistically they're outside of that. They're a lottery team. And I think they would have a chance of being even further down the list, but there's just so many, I guess at the very bottom, there's so many bad Eastern Conference teams. That it's sort of hard for them to just before the season starts, say that they're going to be the 28th team in the league or whatever, but there doesn't feel like there's a real obvious sort of like ladder up to like the actual like middle ground of the league. So, and for whatever it's worth, like, man, the Hornets are usually like the 23rd best team in the league. Like they're usually drafting,
sounds about right.
8th or 9th or whatever in the first round. So this is music to my ears, man.
So, we were kind of talking about it a little bit off screen, how this year's team, they do rank higher than I had them at last year. I think I had them 27th last year, but that was a dreadful 27. Like, yeah. I don't want to talk about this team 27. This year there is like a renewed sense of optimism with this Hornets team, and I'm actually going to kind of skip around with the questions here because this wasn't the original first question, but last year, one of the things we talked about was the rehiring of Steve Clifford. And I remember hating it. I hated the hire. It never made sense to me. It kind of felt like the organization was saying, well, we give not now we give up. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of what it felt like. They predictably don't last long with Steve Clifford, but they get Charles Lee. What was your reaction to landing Charles Lee as the new head coach?
It was from the outside looking in, it seemed like a great hire. And Steve Clifford is a guy that during his first stint in Charlotte did a lot of good things. He was dealt a pretty bad hand, the last two seasons. It was a bad situation. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into some of the reasons over like why the roster was pretty whittled down, with injuries playing a big role in that. But to get Charles Lee, very exciting. I would just say, like, I was a little biased too, because when I was a kid growing up, when Charles Lee played college basketball at Bucknell, he was my coach at Wake Forest basketball camp. So
really,
that's
awesome.
So I like that I had a small portal into his early stages of his coaching career. But no, I mean, the young coach, energetic, winning pedigree, coming from winning a title in Milwaukee under Mike Budenholzer to being in Boston with Joe Mazzulla. I thought it was interesting to see sort of like the different styles that you would have with a team like Milwaukee. Just thinking about how like Milwaukee would guard, with Brook Lopez in the deep drop, Giannis, Drew Holiday at the point of attack, versus all the creative stuff Boston was trying this past season, moving guys around, the scheme versatility. So I like bringing a guy that was young, could connect with the players, and also was a guy that had, at least, again, just from the outside looking in, seemed to have, pretty impressive pedigree, being an assistant for 10 years in the NBA, in doing so underneath some, pretty well-regarded head coaches like Coach Bud and obviously like what Joe Mazzulla has become in Boston. And it really did seem like he was the guy. The hiring process sort of dragged on for a while, but I think a good bit of that had to do with the run Boston was making in the postseason. So to land Charles Lee was a big hire. Every interview that I've seen with him so far, whether it was his intro press conference or him talking to the ESPN crew during the second summer league game or third summer league game, can't remember which one it was has been encouraging. So I am excited to see what he and the staff sort of have cooked up from a scheme perspective on both sides of the floor this season.
So, well, first off, before I get to what I was about to say, I went back and I made sure I had everything in order. So the Hornets for me technically are the 10th ranked Eastern Conference team. The teams I've ahead of them behind them. Can't spoil. I was about to spoil the whole series. I have Toronto and Detroit behind them, like right behind them. I have Chicago behind them, and then it's like Washington and Brooklyn, who I think are going to be
of course. Of course. Yeah, to me, it strikes me as like Toronto and Chicago are the two I could see usurping them, but the margins could be pretty tight, pretty bunched. But other than that, I could also see the Hornets getting to a point in the season where they sort of decide to, even if they have, whatever percent chance of, getting the 10th seed or whatever, I could see them, finding ways to sort of like hit the eject button, and try to get back into the, contention for a high pick. Well, partly because their 2025 first round pick is lottery protected out the door to San Antonio. That's a pick that's a draft pick that's bounced around. Initially, it was New York. Then I believe it was.
Is that from the Mark Williams draft night trade?
No, it's from the 2021 draft night trade. It was so the Hornets could get back into the first round and draft Kai Jones.
Okay.
And they protected it. It was like top 18 protected, top 16 protected. Then last year it was lottery protected. This year it's lottery protected. If it doesn't convey this year, it then conveys as 2 second round picks, I believe. So they should be trying to keep that pick, right? Like as much as possible. Like they need, not just because it has a chance to potentially be like another franchise defining player in what projects to be a good draft, but because they need as many, chances at the lottery machine as possible here. So, and they picked up, 2 picks at the 2 first-round picks at the deadline with the Terry Rozier and PJ Washington trades. But like, if you lose the 2025 first-round pick, then you're essentially, you're not +2 like you were after the deadline this season. So there are multiple incentives for them to sort of be mindful of where they're going to finish up this season. And I know that's not like, it's probably not something a lot of the fans of the team want to hear, because they've just been so dreadful for so many years now. I mean, no playoffs since 2016. It's crazy. So I get the frustration. Just they should be incentivized in a few different directions to be very mindful of like where they're finishing up this season and where they could land, in the draft order potentially.
So I couldn't rank Charles Lee too high. I do, coaching does get a certain percent of the grade for like each team's overall score. Think of it like a benefit of the doubt slider almost, where like the Spurs, for example, still get like an okay enough bump from like Pop or whatever, because Pop. Whereas I don't know, like my Lakers, for example, I can't give JJ anything really. Like,
who knows?
So right, like literally, who knows? But like, even with that being said, Charles Lee entering the league 25th amongst NBA coaches, but that's like, I love his upsides for everything you said. Like, he's going to be awesome. I love the hire. And I think the biggest thing really, and you kind of mentioned it when you look at Boston, specifically Boston, I think both on both ends of the floor, like you said, kind of the scheme versatility, where they could really mix and match like styles of play or whatever, or certain offensive concepts, or maybe one game will be a switch heavy team and we'll play Tatum on. I think they did this in the finals. Actually, they would have Tatum guard or Jaylen Brown. Even they'll have one of them guard Gafford, so that if you try to go pick and roll, okay, cool, you're going from Drew Holiday to 6'10" Jason Tatum. They obviously threw Drew into the dunker spot a ton and let KP space. So they were really, really versatile schematically. And Charles Lee, I think, is going to be awesome. The social media clips, he's killed it. I love how he communicates with the guys. So this is one of my favorite hires of the cycle for sure. Yeah,
and I could see like, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, like, no one has as much versatility defensively as Boston. Like, it's it's an embarrassment of riches, and Tatum unlocks so much for them on that end. Obviously, the Hornets don't have anything close to that, but like,
tell me they don't have Jason Tatum.
They don't have a Drew Holiday. They don't have a Derek White. They don't have a Jaylen Brown. They don't have a Kristaps Porzingis. But I could see them like. I do think a guy like Grant Williams is potentially like an interesting sort of like swing piece, because he is actually probably their most like scheme versatile, like, defender. 4 or 5, when he was just for the, third of the season with Charlotte last year, he got used in the drop. He got used in, which is like hilarious to see a 6'5" guy, playing drop coverage in the NBA, but he can switch. And so I don't know. He's a guy that I could see like when they want to kind of get funky. I could see him being like kind of an interesting piece on kind of on both sides of the floor, but especially defense.
Yeah. Grant, if I look at my defensive like ratings here, out of any of their guys that could play in an on-ball role, Grant Williams is one of, in my opinion, at least, like the better defenders here for sure in an on-ball role. I mean, there's not a lot here.
It's not a lot. It's not a ton to work with. Without looking at sort of like some of the positional numbers and stuff like that. Just I don't like. I'm not. I sort of prefer Grant to be like, sort of like closer to the paint where you can utilize his strength, as opposed to trying to like stay in front of, really hyper quick NBA guards and wings and stuff like that on the perimeter. Yeah. And they've got, Josh Green will be able to take on some of those or some responsibilities. And, Miller's no stopper. Brandon Miller's no stopper, but like he can, he can guard a little bit too. So, they've got maybe a little bit more punch defensively on the wing this season. But like, it's pretty low. And I mean, Cody Martin, I guess I don't know necessarily how he grades out the numbers, but
he's fine.
Film wise, he's okay. I think he's sort of a little bit better, like team defender, winning play, hustle play type guy than he is like a screen navigator or whatever. But his biggest thing is he's just never healthy. Like he doesn't play. He basically hasn't played the last 2 seasons. So it's like they really need Josh Green to sort of like step into that role. I think there are some reasons to be optimistic about it and other reasons to maybe be like a little bit more, maybe a little bit more, not concerned, but sort of like wary or hesitant with that too. But we'll see.
So before we continue in terms of defense and my defense grades, I have the Hornets defensively in my tier 6 of defense. Tier 6, 20th to 25th amongst the league in defense. I like Mark. Mark's fun, but like
he's just got to be healthy, man. Like, I mean, you worry about the back injury. He missed a ton of time last season, but he was a very good defensive center prospect out of Duke. Thought his rookie season, he showed. I mean, they probably got some shooting luck, but that back third of the thing was the final 2 to 3 months of the 22-23 season. They were a top like 6 to 8 defense, and that's again weird stuff happens.
Second half of the year, yeah.
Weird stuff happens, in March and April basketball. And again, I think like I don't remember the exact 3-point percentage, but opponents shot a very low, percentage from deep against them. But that was Steve Clifford with rookie Mark Williams, and JT Thor played pretty well for them down the stretch defensively that season too. Mark's not the most scheme versatile center, but he can switch in a pinch when you need him to. Like he can he's okay laterally. But my guess is they're going to really try to lean on him in the deep drop and try to let him be the guy that closes off the rim this season. But let's hope he's healthy. There hasn't been like a ton of information about that back injury going back to like December last year. So it's kind of been a while.
Not to spend too much time in the defense because this was even like a part of the questions I had laid out, but like 20th to 25th sounds harsh. And I'm not like under any circumstance saying that I think I project them to be good, but like, can we lean more to like that 20th range, like 20 for Charlotte? Because like there's guys again, like can Josh Green be that POA wing stopper that they're looking for? Can Brandon Miller kind of take another jump defensively? Because I think Brandon Miller has the tools. Can LaMelo not be like the worst starting defensive guard on the planet?
We'll see.
We're asking for a lot here. Right?
Yeah, jury's out. I mean, it's like he does LaMelo's like team defense when he sort of like has the like gamble versus not gamble ratio down pat. I mean, he can generate steals, and obviously like he's a very advanced processor of the game. But yeah, in terms of like on ball stuff, I mean, he's just never been great at navigating screens. He doesn't really have the strength to like really stick in front of guys. It's been a limitation for him on kind of both sides of the floor, just in terms of like consistently winning one-on-one. But yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to. I mean, they just need him to be healthy, and if he can just be like kind of borderline passable and create some steals, because he's gonna get steals and rebounds. Like he's gonna get steals and rebounds, right?
Yeah,
and like those are things that like are good for a defensive player. It's just sort of like, what are you doing in between, picking up those types of like box score stats? So we'll see.
So there were two guys that we kind of just touched on, and they were both kind of my next two questions. So let's start off with, I guess, my apology to, and this is one of several apologies I've given over like the past year. Brandon Miller, I apologize.
Yeah, man. I had to take the L on that one too. I'm not gonna lie. Happily, by the way, mind you.
Happily, right? He's awesome. I want to say, because I was watching like some film earlier, I want to say it was like that month of March, or was it like February? Hold on, let me see. It was February. 21 points, rounding up. 21 points, 5 rebounds on 45% from the floor, 37% from three, on almost 8 attempts from three.
Yeah.
He was so fun last season, and I'm kind of at a point personally where, and maybe I'm just lower on Melo, and we'll talk about LaMelo in a sec. But I'm at a point, Brian, where I think if the Hornets as a franchise are going to take that like contender step at some point, Brandon Miller is going to be because Brandon Miller turns into that like versatile wing superstar that everybody that was super high on Brandon Miller coming out, and I was oh so low for having him number 3 on my board, but everybody for being super high on Brandon, but like he's gonna have to turn into that, and that's kind of where I'm at from like a Charlotte perspective. Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, first off, like I think I had him 4th after Thompson, on the board last season.
Same tier for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like what he was good at is the stuff that like I would have projected him to excel at. He just was so much better at it, and he was so early.
Yeah.
He is so scalable and malleable. Like early in the season, he's playing next to LaMelo, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, Miles Bridges when he came back. And he was really like in sort of like a super off-ball role, baseline cutter, weak side coming out of the corner when with pick and roll situations, run the floor in transition, some movement opportunities. But even early in the season, like a lot of that stuff's getting run for Rozier. And then once Terry was moved to Miami, then all of a sudden a lot of that movement stuff, the screen interaction, the staggers, all that stuff, that stuff starts getting funneled to Brandon Miller or Davis Bertans, when he became part of the late season mix for the Hornets as well. The big piece that I guess, and I must say, like, I didn't see much or any of Miller pre-Alabama. And it apparently, like, from what I've gathered now, the mid-range was sort of like a bigger part of his picture going to Nate Oates and, in the money ball system at Alabama. And he was incredible in the mid-range last season. And he really from a bunch of different distances. That's where a lot of his pick and roll, and he was, over 0.87 points per possession when he used pick and roll opportunities last season. He shot really well on twos in that, almost 45% on 2-point attempts.
I think we're looking at the same thing right now.
Yeah, synergy. Yeah, exactly. But he's just patient. Like he shows good. He'll snake back. He'll keep defenders in jail. Like he'll get them on his hip. And he really utilizes, because he's not like a big like separation guy. So he's got kind of has like the Chris Middleton, like get to his spots and then use his length to, just like get to those to take shots that are, unblockable unless he's playing your Los Angeles Lakers and Anthony Davis. AD, I believe, sent a 3 back in his face. But that's fine. I mean, look, that happens to everyone, not just Brandon Miller. But AD is something else, man. But yeah, I mean, Miller was incredible. And I just think like his role started changing, as I was saying, like early last season, more off ball, and then trades, injuries, all this stuff happens. And like by a point in the season, it was like, oh man, he's really like the only guy other than maybe Bridges that can like actually, and once they got, Trey Mann and Misic, they got some other guys that could run pick and roll, but like Miller really became the guy to like actually create offense. And there were points of the season, probably in this February window, where teams were like, I mean, he was getting 2 on the ball, like running pick and roll. And I can think of, I actually jotted this down because I was pulling up some of my clips on him from earlier today. Denver, Atlanta, Orlando, Indy, Detroit, all of those teams were blitzing him at points of the season because he just came out hot, playing pick and roll in those matchups. There's so many fun ways you can scheme up offense for him. Like he kind of has some of the, gravity bending movement shooter potential. And it was really fun, once Rozier was gone and Miller started to become the target of, a lot of these movement sets. So, coming off staggered screen-to-screener action, when they get into double drag with the staggered coming off of that, or double drag with the screen-to-screener, the rip screen into
double
the
drag
pin
shallow,
down.
where like he's the shallow, the cut through guy.
Yeah, exactly. And 21
zoom action with them. Like you can just run anything. Not to cut you off, but I'm looking at this play type data or whatever, and it's so hard. And maybe I'm being prisoner of the moment or whatever, right? And it's just the name on my mind. But it's hard not to look at the play type data and say, and like you said, the scheme versatility and how you could just utilize them in any scenario. It's hard not to like think like current Paul George, where
it's just crazy because it's like, oh, so keep going.
No, and again, like, I don't want to overstep or whatever, if that makes sense. But like current day Paul George, oh, let's throw him off a stagger. Oh, we have a mismatch. Cool, let's give him an ISO at the high elbow or whatever. Let's run pick and roll for him 6 times a game. Let's let Melo, or in his case Maxey, run 2-man game with Embiid, and if you sag off of him, he's gonna shoot the 3 from a 42% clip on uncontested looks. Like it's hard, and that's where the Melo and Brandon Miller pairing can really be unique and dynamic, because you have this super flexible offensive piece next to like this, somewhat flexible, not as flexible, I would say, but this super dynamic on-ball lead guard, and you can really get some, like, make some magic. You got the lob there, Mark Williams, like you can really make some magic there.
Yeah. Again, Miller being a guy that can, he's great playing off the ball, can make the extra pass. We'll happily make the pass that can set up, the hockey assist type stuff when he's getting 2 on the ball. And has the size obviously to like see over defenders and stuff like that too. Really good coming off of handoffs, moves super well without the ball, like whether that's
47% on dribble handoff 3. Sorry, that's
nuts. And he was really good late last season, playing off of Grant Williams. Like the Hornets early on in the season, especially like once LaMelo got hurt. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure you've seen enough film of them to know, but like it was really tough for them to just trigger pick and roll action, right? Like, I mean, it was just like setting, a maze of ball screens for Terry Rozier so he can jack up a mid-range shot. It was pretty tough to watch. So like, Clifford routed the offense and started doing sort of a lot of stuff through the mid post with Hayward or Bridges, and then once Grant was in town, they started running a lot of like elbow corner series type action. With Miller starts in the corner, point guard enters the ball to Grant at the elbow. There's a low split in the corner between Miller and Trey Mann. Miller can either split cut, get to the rim, or he can come off of down screen. Or he can come off use man as a pin down and get into the zoom action with Grant at the elbow. That's like how that's how we got some of those really juicy, dribble handoff looks. It did sort of make me wonder, like, I had the thought watching those guys play, Grant and Miller last season, like, it does make me think, as malleable as Miller is, and I'm very excited to see sort of like what his role looks like next season, what do the on-ball opportunities look like? I think it really is important when you have a guy like Miller, like that kind of mover, off-ball mover type. Yeah. Having a guy like Grant that can play, like having a front court guy that can pass a little bit and like operate at the elbow or, 5-out type stuff is big. And I think that's something that like the Hornets front office maybe needs to like consider, like even beyond Grant Williams, you know what I mean? Like the importance of having a 4 or 5 that can really like get him good looks in some of these sort of like off ball or, handoff type actions is kind of a big deal. But he was awesome. I mean, he was a little bit older for a rookie, obviously, but it's just an incredible, special season. He was probably the 3rd best rookie in the league last season, behind, Wemby and Chet.
2 generational talents.
Yeah, exactly. And look, like, I mean, Scoot's going to play better in Portland. By no means am I like, dumping my Scoot, all my Scoot Henderson stock. And I think Amen Thompson. I mean, there's other guys that are coming. So, it's not like guaranteed that he's going to be the 2nd best player in the 2023 draft class just yet. But like, he had a really impressive freshman year. And to your point, like, if they're ever looking for like the big franchise pivot, and I hopefully like you have an offense that can really coexist with Miller and LaMelo, and like there's a good ecosystem for those guys, and you can find other ways to sort of like paper over some of the rim pressure limitations that both those guys sort of have. But like if there ever was the need to hit like the big reset button in Charlotte, it would be like, you would move LaMelo for I mean, he's just starting, he's in the first year of a huge contract, but like it would eventually be moving him for, potentially a ton of stuff, and then sort of like trying to build up around Miller. But
Yeah.
LaMelo's young. I mean, he just turned 23. Like,
Which is crazy.
It's crazy. And so they should be looking to sort of like as much as possible feature those guys and make sure they're healthy and give them a big runway to work with this season. Like this is the year to like gather data, gather information on Charles Lee, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller. Like this is sort of like an interesting early season, I think, for all of those guys going forward.
Well, I think between October and at the very least, I'll give them till January. The Hornets will be a league pass team. After January, no promises, but
yeah, that's fair.
Really quick, because there's a couple more things we have to get into with Brandon Miller. I want to see more volume, but also a little bit more efficiency with the pull-up three out of ball screens. He shot 32% on pick and roll threes last season, only 69 attempts. He's such a talented shooter to where like that number doesn't concern me. And like I said, just get it up to like, okay, up to like, can we get 100 pick and roll threes next season? Right. So, and that should be there. I don't think that's like a big ask when I think he's probably, I would say, your second best offensive player. I mean, unless you want to say Miles, which I would understand. And then just, and I don't know how much of this you can really improve upon, but just a little bit better with like the rim shot creation. Yeah. And that's like the biggest thing. Cause if that happens, then we're in a different stratosphere of play.
Yeah. Then he actually has like super, like I think like he right now, I mean, he looks like a great player to like build around and feature and stuff like that. But like the rim stuff would like, if he ever got to that, like a guy that could like really sort of like get more separation, get to the paint more, get more free throws. Like that's when you're actually talking about like, that's like superstar kind of stuff,
And that's like the biggest gap between him and Paul George right now.
Yeah, right. And like, like Miller is, Paul PG was just so athletic when he first came into the league. And,
that's why Miller's current Paul George.
Yeah, it's different. It's different, bad injury and, father time. That'll snake some of it. But Miller did have some unbelievable dunks and chase down blocks last year too. So it's like he's got some bounce. He's not, super twitchy with the ball. He doesn't have like an amazing first step. He's not super strong. So you just like often when he is trying to sort of like create off the bounce and, crack the paint, he's bumping it. He doesn't deal well with the bump basically. So you see him get like knocked off his plane a little bit, and like he can make tough off plane shots too. Just like that's not as efficient as drawing fouls and, getting to the rim and stuff like that. But to the point that you just mentioned, I mean, it's because we're all thinking about this in sort of the same way. But like when they interviewed Charles Lee during Summer League, I think one of the first questions they asked him was about Brandon Miller. And he said, next season, more like it's great that he can take those mid-range shots, but less mid-range, more threes, and more trips to the free throw line. So like they're going to try to grab some of the low hanging fruit to make him a more efficient player. So hopefully he's getting stronger in sort of like, again, the pull up shooting would be another really, really big piece. If he could just be, up the volume and at least sort of make, because he was like low 30s this season, just make make like a modest efficiency increase there. And it could also just open up a lot of other stuff for him too. But yeah, that feels like the next thing for him on offense.
Shot 34.9% on pull-up threes in general, not counting ball screens, but in general. But only took 109 attempts. But pull-up mid-range attempts, 48.8%.
Yeah.
But literally like almost exactly doubled the amount of mid-range attempts. Mid-range pull-up attempts. So that's crazy. Moving on to LaMelo Ball, who truthfully is one of the hardest players to like evaluate in the league.
Yeah.
Because, and this is essentially what I said in my roster breakdown. I think he is awesome. I think he does some just flat out batshit crazy stuff. Like, excuse the language, but the level of creativity is on another planet. And like just flat out creativity with the ball. Is it like him and Luka? If we're being honest, like maybe Hallie, but like even then, it's not. I don't think on that level, just pure creativity ability. with the ball in his hands. Unreal shot maker, like from the perimeter especially. But obviously the health, gotta find a way to stay healthy. He's missed. He's only played 133 games over the past 3 seasons. Got to find a way to stay healthy. That's priority number one. None of this stuff matters if Melo is not healthy next season or in general. Yeah. I actually just have like legitimate questions still about him just as a player in general, right? Where I think you look at the Eastern Conference, so just stay focused on the East, of like hierarchy of lead guards. Like you have a Maxey, Hallie, Trey, Dame still, Cade, who I love. I adore Cade.
He's awesome.
Trying to make sure I'm not like forgetting any like other major lead guards in the East. I think I covered them all. If I did, I apologize, I guess. I don't think Melo is like in that top tier. And as great of a playmaker is, the decision making is like equally as baffling as like as great of a creator he is. So I just have a tough time kind of evaluating LaMelo Ball as a player. What is your take on LaMelo? And like I think literally like what I wrote down my notes for this question was, what the hell do we think about LaMelo Ball?
Yeah. He's one of those guys. It's like he could get back up into that tier with like playing 75 games this season, right? But It's just like, is that possible? I mean, that's what he did 2 seasons ago. He was an all-star, age 20. I felt like he came in and was ahead of same draft class in 2020, despite being 18 months or so younger. I felt like he was ahead of Halliburton initially early on. And I sort of thought even into like, 2 seasons ago that like he had the edge, or they were sort of like, neck and neck. And then obviously like LaMelo plays only 22 games last season. Halliburton has a great season, even battles his own injuries, but was awesome. He's kind of a media darling too, makes the Olympic team, all that sort of stuff. And like, no knock on Hallie, like he's awesome, but like LaMelo could get back, I think, to that. And it should be noted, like not just the health context has been bad for LaMelo, but like kind of everything has been terrible, like the last 2 seasons, right? Like it's been a slog for them between suspensions, injuries, the moving James Borrego and not really having a plan once Kenny Atkinson decided to actually not take the job and having to pull back to Steve Clifford.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, his first 2 seasons, LaMelo's playing, run and gun in this 5-out type offense that's playing a lot of PJ Washington at center. And those teams weren't, they won, 43 games a season or whatever. But he was the lead guy on the top 6 offense in his age 20 season.
Yeah.
And he's had his limitations plenty of times. And, as high as I am on him, he's probably never going to be like an amazing, like one-on-one scorer just because of some of the limitations with strength and burst. So what does that mean in terms of like how you're going to like orient your franchise? What does that mean for your other ball handlers, your other creators, or can he actually turn the corner there? He was getting to the rim more last season before he got hurt. That was like really encouraging to see before the season went belly up. The decision-making concerns like are pretty, they're real, but like, I do think with LaMelo, like my like him in terms of decision-making come usually like when he's gambling on defense.
Okay.
And just like some percentage of his like 3-point attempts where it was just like, dude, if you could just trim the fat, just take those like the 5 to 10% worst shots you take, because like, there's nothing wrong with him taking like deep pull-ups. Like, I kind of think he needs to do that because like that's how he can like if he hits enough of those, you can like geek out coverages.
Defense,
Yeah, exactly. There's some of the bad ones that it's really like, oh man, you can see guys like off ball getting like turned off because like he's looking them off while taking tough shots,
40-foot shots.
He doesn't turn the ball over a ton, weirdly. Like you might think he'd be this guy that sort of like throws the ball all over the court. Like he kind of does, but just like he's a very good processor. He's got incredible vision. 15% turnover rate for his career. Like, and that's where he was basically every season. Like he really, despite being an incredibly, high usage, high assist rate type player, guy who has the ball a ton and runs a ton of pick and roll, he actually is like a pretty efficient pick and roll operator for the most part. And I do think like one of the, like I think it was Tim McMahon on one of the recent like Hoop Collective, ESPN podcasts was sort of said LaMelo's efficiency is terrible. And it's like, that's actually not true. Like, I mean, we're talking about a guy, 55% true shooting, 15% turnover rate, despite being, high usage, high assist player. The offenses are always more efficient when he's on the court, was the lead guy. Like I said, 2 seasons ago for a top 6 offense. It's like, I think there absolutely are things to like poke at in terms of his like limitations as like a primary initiator, the injury concerns. And again, there certainly are some decision-making things that do leave you sort of scratching your head a little bit. But you do have to remember, like, this is not like the team was super duper young his first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It was bad and riddled with injuries each of the last 2 years. Did not have the like supplementary shooting and ball handling around him to like really put him in a good spot. I mean, like, imagine what he would look like if he was healthy and getting to play in Rick Carlisle's offense. Like, think what that would look like if he had Miles Turner, to run pick and pop with and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm sort of hoping this is kind of like a get right year for him because the size, the vision, the shooting touch, like there's so much talent there.
Ridiculous.
It's crazy. You see it on the runners.
Yes, the angles. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, his touch is actually ridiculous, and
it's crazy.
In a full season, like you touched on the driving ability, which really, really improved this season and was super important, I think, for his growth as a player. A full season of that, like, hold on, what did he like actually average this year? LaMelo Ball averaged 23, round up, 24, 5, and 8. There's no reason why like he can't have a month like like November almost all year like next year, where he averaged 27, 5, and 8 on 48, 42, 87. Maybe not that efficient, but like something close to that, especially with the assists. Like, why can't he be a 25 and 10 player essentially?
Yeah, I think it's there for him, but just like, again, it just comes down. It's the health factor. But there's like, this season he's got a guy next to him in Miller that they can, pair those guys together in actions and, help them both out. He's got a guy that can pull some defenders away from him. If Mark Williams is healthy, then, you've got a guy that can give you some rim pressure as a guy that can screen and roll. You've got, a short roll guy in Grant Williams. And they do have like a little bit more insurance behind him. Like, that's also been like one of the issues the last couple of seasons. Like, he'd get hurt and all of a sudden it'd be like, Terry Rozier plus Teo Maldon or Frank Ntilikina. And like, now they have Trey Mann and Vasa Micic, who are like, I mean, Trey Mann's got like some talent and some upside, and like Micic is awesome. And Micic is just like good, just a good player. He played well in the Olympics too for Serbia, like big, powerful guard. So like they should be able to, I think like prop up the offense at times when LaMelo sits, whether that's when he's hurt or, when he's, going to the bench or whatever. So it's a slightly better situation this season, but by no means, I mean, this is still not like a great basketball team. So, it's going to be a lot is up to LaMelo to sort of like raise his play if they're going to like become like a better team or at least like a more watchable product.
Are you an NFL fan by chance? Because I have like an analogy or a comparison or whatever.
I watch way less. I used to be a big Panthers fan. They're very depressing. Charlotte sports have been really bad recent years, man. It's not good times there. But I will say, like, once Cam Newton retired, I sort of started to like watch less of it. But like I'm aware of the league. Like I'm like, it's hard to pay attention to sports and like not sort of like at least like ambiently be like aware of like what's happening in the NFL,
So the guy I would like think of like LaMelo with. And you kind of touched on it a little bit. We're like, okay, you kind of need him to some of these bad shots in air quotes or whatever, or these really weird plays with the decision making, with the playmaker or whatever. Like some of these you like almost need because that's just how he is. He's this ultra aggressive guy. Immediately in my mind, I go like Josh Allen. We're like, you almost live with, all right, that was a stupid pass. But that's you, and we'll have to live with it because that's part of what makes them special talents. And I am truly hoping that Melo is like able to have a full year, like kind of going back to, like you said, that 21-22 season, if
Yeah,
I recall
sophomore
correctly.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sophomore year, played 75 games, shot 39% from three, averaged 20 points a game, all-star that season. Like, can we get back to like full force? Because if Melo's healthy, then they could be a really, really fun team in the Eastern
Mhm.
Conference, and they would be a season long league pass team, and not just a till January league pass team.
And we should note this. You and I were texting about this, I guess, kind of recently, but does seem there's been some footage, not much, but some footage of him that the team put out this offseason where it looked like maybe he was wearing ankle braces, which is something he's dabbled with previously, but just couldn't find anything that was comfortable enough for him. So he ended up never really sticking with those. So who knows? I mean, like Puma, get on it. Like this guy is like I rode the subways in New York this summer. I saw Puma ads with LaMelo Ball all over the subways in New York. Like let's like get
Give
some
him
of
the
your
Steph Curry
scientists.
treatment.
Yeah, exactly. Like so we'll see if that's something he
Face of the
sticks
brand
with.
right here.
But really, it's one of those things. Like he had 3 separate ankle injuries 2 seasons ago in 22-23, then had the ankle injury again last season. So it's like, I don't know. It's like you do have to worry, like, is this going to become like hopefully this is not a chronic thing, right? Like hopefully this is something that you correct now. In part because because he's so good, he's so much fun to watch play. But also too, it's like, that you don't always want to think about these things in dollars and cents, because like LaMelo is an actual person.
Yeah.
Like, but they did just also, I mean, like his 5-year, it's the fun max or whatever, but his 5-year rookie max extension kicks in now. So you kind of need him to be available and to play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like there's a balance they're gonna have to find with him this season. But if he's healthy and can play, then man, it would just be a real game changer for them moving forward. So fingers crossed.
So last two like individual players, if you will. Tadon Saloon was taken with the 6th pick in the draft this year. What was kind of your reaction to that pick?
It was, so I liked Salon as a prospect like enough. And I kind of had a feeling he was sort of on their radar. Like with the Buzzbeat pod, we did a ton of draft coverage.
Yep.
Pod, we were picking a lot of like prospects that were probably going to be in the Hornets range, maybe a player type that they were looking for as well. And Salon was a guy I don't think we ever did like a full preview on, but I mentioned him multiple times as like, look, this is a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he was taken, 8, 9, or 10 or whatever. So like, it's I mean, I think it was a bit of a reach for them to go with him at 6, but it's not inconceivable, from the outside looking in, that's something that they would try to do. Like I think he maybe just turned, maybe just turned 19. He's super young. If you saw any of him playing for Colette last season, I mean, played well in a good league, very young, plays hard, good motor. He's got shot. Yeah, it's like, it doesn't, showed some range and some, some sort of like some slight movement shooting abilities from deep. Obviously he has good size. He plays hard. He, is shown, he does the thing that like all sort of like, big wing, sort of like shaky shooters type, where he cuts a lot, he runs in transition, that type of stuff. But I mean, some of the games you would see when he would like be fluid, quick with his release, or they'd get him kind of moving as the back screener in Spain pick and roll, let him pop out and try to get a look that way. And then I think there's some stuff like with him, his ability to get in passing lanes, it looked impressive. He's got good positional size. There's some versatility there. It's just like, I don't think you're going to see him play a lot in Charlotte this season. I mean, I guess he'll be in Greensboro a ton, playing in the G League. And it's just going to be a while. Like he's going to be a really important player development test case for them, right? This new front office, this new coaching staff. There were a lot of good players that were still on the board at the time that he was selected. I kind of wanted them to go with Ron Holland, who went 1 pick before him, to Detroit at 5. But after that, Kling and Dillingham, even a guy like Topich, Cody Williams, like Devin Carter, Bub Carrington. Like these are all guys that like I was Khalil Ware. These are guys that I was like pretty interested in, and maybe 6 would have been a reach for some of them, but I don't think it would have been a reach for all of them. So again, Salon, it felt a little early at 6, but the front office likes him. They like his upside clearly. And I see the archetype, and I see the guy that maybe they're envisioning as like the guy that is playing the 4 for them 4 years from now, right? With LaMelo and Brandon Miller, is like he becomes sort of like their hybrid forward, playing the 4 and stuff like that. So I don't know. Where were you on Salon in like the pre-draft process? He obviously did not have like a great summer league, but I don't think anyone should have like expected that either.
So I had Salon 13th on my board.
Yeah. That sounds right, honestly.
I appreciate Charlotte for like, this is the guy that, like you said, I think they clearly see the archetype with, pounding the table for. I appreciate, whether they're right or wrong, like GMs that say, you know what, this is our guy, whether the consensus has him at 15 or they have him at 3. This is our guy, and if he's there, we're taking him at 10 or whatever, right? Charlotte's case was 6, obviously, right? So I respect that, but I do lean with you. I'm like, for one, I think they might force him to play year 2, but I'm honestly sitting here thinking, like, does he play? I don't think he plays at all year 1. If he does, it's like injury related, probably not for him, but like, okay, they're really depleted at the way, right? Yeah. Like they're just depleted amongst their wings. And even like year 2, it'll be more opportunities for playing time, but I still look at year 2 like as, he'll only be 21. We don't have to rush this. And this was more of a long-term like type of draft pick, which I get that, but. And again, I did kind of just give them praise for like getting the guy they were pounding the table for. So I don't want to be like too much of a hypocrite. But you tell me if you like trade it back for one of those like bloodthirsty teams that wanted Donovan Clingan, like you could just trade back. And
it seemed like that's what they were gonna try. It seemed like that's what they were trying to pull off draft night. I mean, there was some confusion, like because there was some reporting from either Woj or Shams, I don't remember which one, that like. They were looking to move. Yeah. And that to me is
I think it was Memphis officially, right? Like I think one of them actually dropped the tweet.
Yeah. And so it's like, there's some opportunity cost there, right? Because you probably could have scooped up another pick or whatever.
Yeah.
And then still gotten Salon at 9.
8 or 9.
He still would have been there. So
that's
the one that you're absolutely correct in bringing it up. That's the sort of like potential missed opportunity because like I'm not sure anyone else was, itching to take Salon before, you get closer to like 10, 11, 12.
Sure.
And even then it's still like a little bit of a reach. So that to me is the thing where it does feel like they maybe missed out on something, but who knows? Like they may have searched around and like, it was, too little too late for them to actually like find the deal.
Yeah. Because hypothetically they do trade back to 9, which was Memphis. 7 was Portland.
Yeah.
8 was San Antonio / Minnesota. So I don't think either one of those teams are taking Salon.
I don't think so either. I mean, maybe San Antonio, but like they made the deal with Minnesota, right? That ended up netting the Wolves Dillingham. So like I don't think. I mean, I think he would have. I think it's like a safe. Bet to say he would have been there at 9.
That's yeah. So I don't know.
The thing, but it does seem like Memphis was obviously like they wanted Clingan, but they were clearly like very
fine with Edie.
With Edie too.
Exactly.
I mean, they seem to be very happy with that pick, and so like who knows? Maybe that's actually like what it came down to. Where they were like, we don't want to give up more ammo to move up. There's 2 of these guys. One of them's going to be there at 9, and we'll just sit and wait and take whomever's available.
Yeah. Last like player related question. Then we get to some team games or whatever. Should the Hornets have paid Miles Bridges? What's kind of your thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, I mean, man, it's crazy because we talked about him last season, I think too.
Yep.
I mean. This has been 2.5 years now of having to like talk about this. It sucks. No, I'll be honest with you, dude. I wish they hadn't paid him. it's not fun having this guy on your team. I'm not gonna lie. It makes it less fun to follow them. He's obviously a talent. It's why he's still, relatively young, just basically entering his prime as an on-court player. And so that's why ultimately, like, none of these teams want to let talent just like walk out the door unless it happens, I guess there are some exceptions, even Kevin Porter's gotten how many, second chances and stuff too, but he's back in the league this year too. So just like in general, it's not even like like obviously like I am frustrated with the Hornets for being the ones who are doing this, but
it's a league.
I think every team, like the league, like the bigger conversation is that like the league doesn't care enough about women, period. It just doesn't. And it's really disappointing because like, it's the thing, like I love basketball. I love following the NBA. I'm happy to sit through watching the Hornets win 20 freaking games in the season. It's just like, it's not fun when they have a guy like Bridges who has done some pretty like monstrous stuff, going back the last couple of years. So I try not to talk about him, in terms of like covering the team as much as possible. Like it's unavoidable sometimes. If you ever follow me on, if you follow me on Twitter, I don't highlight any Miles Bridges plays. I'm not going to. And I would have loved for them to have, if he had found, I'm sure as far as like the contract goes, I don't think he should be a $25 million a year player personally. He can score, he can shoot, he can get to the rim when he's locked in, but he was a pretty like empty calorie player this season. He had a 40-point game this year with 0 rebounds in it too. I think it actually may have been against the Lakers if I'm remembering correctly, but it may have been. I could have that wrong though, but he's obvious. Am I right about that?
He had 41 against the Lakers. No rebounds.
No rebounds. 0. His off-ball defense is terrible. He ball watches. He's not trying to be engaged. He lets cutters and cut right in front of him or right behind him for layups. Like he's not engaged on that side of the floor. I don't think he like really makes guys better on offense, even though he can, he scores and he's athletic enough to like draw a crowd. I just like, I'm sure what happened this offseason was, Miles Bridges, Clutch Sports, they looked around for free agent deals. There really wasn't a market there. The Hornets looked around for signing trade opportunities while working with Clutch, and that stuff wasn't there. And if that's the case, I guess and there weren't like a ton of teams that had like the space to just take him in. Like it was going to have to be a team like Detroit or whatever. But I guess I'm a little surprised that he was still able to like fetch that large of, he's the second highest paid player on the roster behind LaMelo.
Yeah.
I don't long-term, man, I don't really know what the plan with him is. Every piece that came out, if it was Woj or Shams or whomever, like talking about his signing, who knows if they're getting fed this stuff, from the team or agency or whomever, but like, it's always going to mention him as like part of like the core with LaMelo and Miller. That always makes your stomach churn a little bit. So look, I continue to watch this team. I continue to cover this team and think about them and write about them and do all that sort of stuff. And, I'm comfortable with some gray area, like I think all of us as humans are probably comfortable with some gray area in different parts of our lives. But this is one that for 2 years now has felt pretty bad. And, I don't, it's like, I wish I had more like profound things to say on it other than that. But no, I don't think they should have brought him back. I don't think they should have paid him that much money. Again, no denying his talent, but like sometimes it's easy for me to say, like, I'm just a writer covering the league. I don't work for a front office. Yeah. And so I understand like they don't want to lose the asset for nothing or whatever, but like that, man, it's like, I don't know, like it doesn't sit well with me and it doesn't feel good. And so I don't know. Bridges, I wouldn't have done it. And I wish the Hornets had sort of like sought a different way to go about using, and like I wouldn't have mind him walking. Like I don't care enough like about that, like if this guy, and I know a lot of like my thoughts on Bridges I've created plenty of blowback. Like he's got a lot of supporters, not just like in the league and stuff like that, but like people online. And that can be like a little disheartening. So sorry to steer the conversation in that direction.
No.
Yeah, it's a really unfortunate and like is absolutely like the most depressing thing for me covering and following the NBA, period.
So yeah, man, there's just like a lot of weird stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Sorry.
So no, you're good. So kind of my point with Bridges, I'm glad you said it. You can't deny the talent at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, like he is a talented basketball player that, just the fact of the matter is, like, you take him off this team, I would probably have the Hornets come in lower in the power rankings. Not like it matters. It would still fit in this area. Like we're talking about title contender to play-in team or whatever. But
exactly.
He does make some sort of a difference. And he is a good player. It is frustrating to hear like he's a part of our young core or whatever, because when I think young core with this team, like if I'm like picking 4 players, it's Melo, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams, and Tadas Alon or whatever. Like that's the 4.
Maybe Nick Smith if you close your eyes,
Nick Smith.
Like that. There's some other like young
people.
There's some other young guys on the roster that have some upside too. But like there's an obvious 3 guys and possibly like a 4th guy if you're looking at Salon or NSJ or Man or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this because I talked about it during the breakdown. We talked about it a bunch last week, even though I don't ever know if that episode got posted. My bad.
I look, if you didn't look, for everyone listening now, I was brilliant during it. You'll just have to take my word for it. All right.
The most frustrating part, and I do remember us talking about this last year. I, to this day, have absolutely hated how they've handled it, like organizationally. I remember that press conference because I remember watching it before we did our episode last year together, and I remember hating it. There's always been like this level of like insensitiveness or whatever, if that's a word, but like I think everybody knows what I mean when I say that. And I think that's been the frustrating part. Like there's been almost like a lack of remorse for it. Where okay, if we were, I don't even want to like say the word apologetic because like that just it doesn't sound right rolling off the tongue, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like we were just, like, I'll just use the word remorseful. We were more remorseful for the action, if you will. I'm not going to say I could fully support you or get behind you, but like, okay, there is at least some level of remorsefulness from this human being here where, for the most part, and Miles Bridges truthers, I don't care, come at me, but there's just been this level of like insensitivity with the situation that has just completely rubbed me the wrong way. And like that, again, good basketball player. I had him in the 20-ish range, 25 on average. I'm like, okay, like I thought that was a little bit of a lot.
Who were they negotiating?
Like, who was paying him $25 million?
No one. Like literally, there was no one for it. Like once Detroit, paid Tobias Harris $26 million, 52 over 2 years. Like there was no one else that could like offer that. Like it would have been just like exceptions and stuff. So no, I don't know honestly, but I mean, I guess Philadelphia, if stuff had gone differently with Paul George or like that, that's it
would have had to go real left for that to happen.
Yeah.
So like there's so much like fun stuff to talk about with this team, and then you just still like to this day almost like this dark cloud, kind of hanging over. So
it's a bummer, man. It really is.
Let's wrap things up by playing some, Hornets superlatives, if you will. So we got team MVP, breakout player of the year, defensive player of the year, the player with the most to prove, and then finally Hornets make the playoffs. So let's start off with let's start off with team MVP.
Okay, yeah, I think there's really only 2 options for this, and Can kind of flip a coin either way. I will go team MVP. I'm gonna go with oh boy. I think this is the riskier bet, but I'll bet LaMelo. Just because he's kind of the guy with the ball more. I mean, I think Miller's value is undeniable. I think he has the chance to. I mean, like I'm banking on him becoming an all-star player, multi-time all-star type player. But I just think LaMelo, the playmaking component, is sort of like impossible to ignore, even with Miller being a better defender. So I'll say LaMelo, assuming he's healthy. Yeah. Miller feels like the safer bet, and like I really couldn't. If you would go with Miller for MVP, I like couldn't push back against it, But I'll go LaMelo simply because like I think he's just gonna have the ball a lot if he's healthy, and that to me is gonna be just sort of like make his value maybe a little bit out of reach for a guy like Miller, but we'll see.
Team breakout
player. I mean, let's go Miller just for the hell of it. I mean, it's I think he's a guy that we talked about this earlier. Like there's low hanging fruit for him to grab to become a more he was already a very good, efficient scorer in a few different modes last season. I don't think he's ever going to be like an amazing one-on-one scorer, but we talked about what he can do in the pick and roll, taking more three-pointers, whether off the dribble, off the catch, getting to have a guy like LaMelo, hopefully spoon feed him more this season, play off the dive gravity of a guy like Mark Williams and his size. So I think there's a lot of stuff for Miller to like. He was already a very good offensive player this past season, but there's so much for him to sort of like grab. He's young, and he should be getting better. So I will, in the context, should be hopefully a little bit better for him next season if LaMelo is playing a full year. So I'll go Miller for breakout player.
I'm going to argue LaMelo Ball breakout player, or LaMelo be like kind of a re-breakout to where kind of like you said earlier, where it's like okay, we are re-breaking out back to that like tier of guards where it's him next to next with the Howley and guys of that kind of caliber. Defensive player of the year.
Mark Williams. Again, I think that's a pretty. There's not a ton to choose from. You could probably make cases for. You could probably try to make a case for Josh Green or
if he's healthy.
Grant.
But if Mark isn't healthy.
But if Mark isn't healthy, it would be one of those guys. But I just think. You think about the outsized importance that like defensive anchors and rim protectors have, right, already. And Williams has shown, at least during his rookie season when he was healthy, like he showed that he could be a guy that could be, pretty impactful on the glass, defending at the rim. And again, like he can, when you need him to, like he could switch out on a Trae Young, in a late clock possession. Like there's some, not a ton, but there's some scheme versatility with him. The 9'9" standing reach is crazy. He's enormous. He moves maybe not like laterally super duper well, but like he's okay enough. And in a straight line, he's pretty fast too. Needs to get stronger in the lower body, and you just got to cross your fingers and hope. I mean, back injury is like kind of scary, So like something to monitor. But to me, he feels like the easiest pick for Hornets deep boy.
Which player has the most to prove this season?
I think it's LaMelo. I really do. And for all the reasons we've talked about, like he's just got the upside is enormous. But the last 2 years have been, despite some good moments, have been kind of lost years for him. So he to me feels like there's probably some other guys you could pick, but maybe even a guy like Grant or whatever, Josh Green, maybe there's a case for him. But I think LaMelo
I was gonna go Josh.
I think that's a good pick too. Like we didn't talk about him much, honestly. Like he's fascinating. I'm hopeful that Josh is like more aggressive with the ball. Watched him play some for Australia this summer, and there were a lot of games. It was like, is Josh Green out there? Is he playing? But good athlete. Maybe not the best like screen navigator defensively on the ball, but he can chase guys coming around, off ball movement screens. He's a good cutter, the stampede cuts, the catch and go game. But I'm hoping he just sort of like uses this as an opportunity now that he's no longer in sort of like the hothouse of contending for the playoffs and the title in Dallas and playing next to a guy like a conductor. Player. Yeah, a guy like Luka, like hopefully he's empowered to just shoot more threes this season.
Yeah.
Because he's shown some ability on the catch. And that can get, if he makes enough of those, that can unlock his, his pump and go game. And hopefully playing again, a healthy LaMelo could also make things a lot easier for him too. But I just hope he's more aggressive offensively. That's sort of like my hope for him this season in Charlotte.
The Hornets, by the way, I really like Josh Green. I was a big fan of him coming into the season. Did have the year that I think anybody really wanted him to have. But like you said, kind of a nice fresh start here in Charlotte.
He's on a great contract for the team too. Like very team-friendly deal. Good young player, should be getting better. He was a nice ad for them this offseason. They did well this offseason, like the Reggie Jackson transaction, getting some second-round picks, getting Green. They did there was some nice handiwork from Jeff Peterson in the front office this year.
Yeah. All right, last one. The Hornets make the playoffs. If they're the 10 seed and they win 2 playing games, that still counts as making the playoff.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's like barring like just bad injuries to several teams, and like the Hornets like
having the best injury luck ever.
Yeah, I think it's something along the lines of like every player in their starting lineup, which I think will be LaMelo, Green, Miller, Bridges, and Williams. I could see maybe Mark Williams.
Yeah,
I could see potentially.
Can you repeat that one more time? Yeah,
LaMelo Ball, Josh Green, Brandon Miller, Bridges, and Mark Williams.
I think Grant in there for now, but
I think that could that's the other one though. I think the other one is LaMelo, Miller, Grant Williams, Bridges, and Mark Williams.
I think like some nice lineup flexibility.
They do. Yeah, they do. Something and again, like a guy like Grant, I think there's a chance they're gonna want his like super sub kind of ability to be play multiple positions coming off the bench, and a guy that can sort of like funnel some of the second unit offense through, along with Micic and Man, and maybe Seth Curry if is his shooting sort of like it can get worked into things. But I think they would need all of those guys. All of the young guys would need to take a step and also like be healthy. Like everyone's got to play like 65 plus games.
Yeah,
you get the 9th or the 10th seed, and then LaMelo just goes crazy. LaMelo and Brandon just go crazy. Like in a short winner go home kind of scenario. But like, I don't think they should like, as I said, addressed earlier on, like, I don't think that should be like organizationally, like the thing that they're like, gunning. Yeah, exactly. Even, obviously if you get there, it's a different story. You probably have to just go for it. But I think basically like, I think a lot of stuff would have to break their way from a health perspective. Like all their guys would have to be healthy, and like, you would need Williams to really like become a defensive anchor. LaMelo gets to all-star form. Miller makes a jump. And you just get like a little bit of sort of like, health luck basically, which like that can happen. And you especially would need teams like we talked about, Toronto, Chicago, right? Like those are the teams you would really need to sort of like struggle a little bit, because that's their like path to like more comfortably be in like the 9-10 range probably.
So I have in my head, at least, unless I'm missing some key thing, I have 4 things, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they're a lot. I think 1, it's obviously health from like your key players. You got to find a way to stay healthy. LaMelo Ball. Yeah. 2, and this is 2 and 3. These are all like really, really big jumps. Mark Williams has to be like a top, we'll call it 10 to 12 defensive big.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the case, then we're not talking about like the 20th to 25th best defense. You're talking about like if they could be 15 to 19. Very much in the middle of the pack, where you have this really good defensive anchor and a bunch of questionable pieces, where it's a good, not great, and a bunch of like really bad to questionable pieces. Then that's where you get like 20th to 25th. Charles Lee has to come in and be like a top 15 coach, which is, I think, actually somewhat in the realm of possibility. I think all these things are like somewhat possible. Because like we talked about, I love Charles Lee. I think you do too. And Brandon Miller has to like be an all-star caliber player. Like I'm not talking about like a jump. We're talking like a jump and a half. Almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like more self-creation.
More self-creation, higher volume of threes.
Yeah, exactly.
Improves on the defensive end. The playmaking, you see a little like more flashes.
Yeah. It's tough. It's like you're probably not going to get all of that. You might get some of that this season. Probably not getting all of it, but maybe.
I think not year 3. By the end of year 3 for Brandon Miller, like almost at the end of year 4, we're like, okay, this team is. I think we're 2 years away. So that's what I'm saying for not only Brandon Miller, but like the team as a whole. I think we're 2 years away.
His mentality is so good too. Just like I'm not a beat reporter. Like I don't cover this team. I'm not like around them every day, but like his mentality for a rookie was really good last season.
Yeah.
Like holding guys accountable in transition defense. Like he got caught on multiple hot mics, yelling at guys to get back, which was like again, just sort of like showed like him sort of like being ready for the moment, but also just like how pathetic the team was at times last season. Where you've got, a 21-year-old, getting in the face of veterans to, get back after a long rebound or whatever. But like, makes the extra pass. It was like obvious that like Gordon Hayward liked playing with him before he got traded. Like Miller just like he does the little things well, but he has like the superstar, potential talent to like go with it too. So like he is the kind of guy you potentially could be like pretty excited to build around, but gonna have to make some leaps offensively for that to like feel even more sort of solid going forward.
Brian, my man, this was I think you hear in my voice right now, actually. This was the longest guest interview we've done. I'm so glad. I know. I'm glad. Never thought I would be spending like a total of 2 hours plus talking about my 23rd ranked team. But yes. Brian, really appreciate you hopping on with me, bro. This is a blast as always. Glad we were able to make this happen. Please tell the great folks where they can find your awesome work.
Yeah. On Twitter at BGEIS_bird at BGeisBird. You can find me the Buzzbeat podcast, which you can find on Spotify or any of your other podcast platforms, talking, weekly, if not multiple episodes per week, talking about the Hornets. We're in a little bit of a lull right now, but once training camp starts back up, those will start firing out, along with my co-host, Richie Randall, Spencer Percy. We've got a really good team. Darian, who's one of our newer guys who helps co-host the pod as well. And you can find me. I freelance for 247 Sports, covering college hoops, mostly ACC teams. And I just made the jump. I've got my own Substack page, RyanGeisinger.substack.com. The title for that is just called Split the Action. And I'm sort of like trying to ramp that up heading into college season. But X and O breakdown, scouting reports. I've got stuff up there about Hunter Salas from Lake Forest, Bayadungo from Georgia Tech. I've got breakdowns on NC State's Iverson series. So if you're into like X and O stuff with college hoops, there's going to be more of that this season as well. So thank you for letting me plug away here.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian's the man, and go check all that stuff out. Brian, actually, like last season, I wasn't super big during the regular season on college hoops or whatever. This year, I'm sorry, my like draft coverage a lot earlier, like at the beginning of the season this year, so I will be tuning a little bit more. But Brian's awesome. A lot of the stuff I saw from Brian during the season was college stuff, so I was able to kind of like get a peek before my draft coverage did start. So, Brian, thanks so much, bro, for hopping on with me. This was a blast.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Till next time. See ya. Stay safe and peace out.